for coming. We really appreciate you being here. I like with our guests to go back initially to the beginning and how and when you decided that you were going to spend your life as a lawyer.
You know, I have this age-old story that everybody has. It starts someplace when you're young. I was in first grade, went to, my mom put me in private religious school, and so I was very indoctrinated, and I wanted to do something to help save the world. So I wanted to be a missionary. It was either a missionary, a doctor, or a lawyer, but I really wanted to be a missionary, and she was like, you can't be a missionary, they don't make any money. So I let go of that ideal and that dream, because that's really what I want to do, and so I thought, okay, I'll be a lawyer, because my thought was, I don't know if I really want to see all that blood and gore. And so as I got older, my mom said, you need to be a lawyer because you love to talk. And so I just kind of kept that career path going, but I knew I wanted to be in the service arena somehow. I wanted to make the world better, and that's the reason why a lot of you all are here. And so I kind of kept that path. I'm very structured, very disciplined. Once I set a goal, nothing else comes in my way. But at some point in 7th grade, I remember we were going across the stage talking about our careers, and like many young women do, for some reason you stop giving yourself the ability to think big, and I went across the stage as a legal secretary. And I think now, what was I thinking? I don't know what happened, but I got back on track, decided I wanted to definitely be a lawyer and continue to pursue that. So.
Tell us about your career before you became a judge, and kind of give us an overview of the arc of your professional life.
Okay. Well, I've just explained to you who my philosophical approach toward practicing law. So when I first started out, I thought I'd work for a firm, but I wanted to work for a firm that was kind of different, new age. And I found that firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I graduated from Georgia, interviewed like all of you all will do when you get to your 3rd year. And this firm in Charlotte asked me to come up, and so I went up there. And they were very different than anything I had ever seen. It was truly a conglomeration of what you would expect America to look like in every phase. They had a firm, and it's so hard when I say this, people look at me so weird because I've never seen anything like it, and they're not like this now. But they truly put themselves out and were a firm that was truly multiracial. So for instance, if they just hired a white attorney, the next attorney they hired would have to be African American, Jewish, or Asian. So they made sure they kept, and so it was truly half and half. And they didn't do as well with the female end of it, but they had more females than most firms had. So when I went to interview with them, I already knew this, and I thought, what a novel place. They're trying to really live out the creed that America espouses to be. And so, you know, it really gelled, and I was going to work for the first name partner, be his kind of minion. And so I went there, and I practiced there for 3 years. It was considered a civil rights firm, and so that's one reason why they looked the way they looked, because they were the first firm to they did the Mecklenburg-Charlotte bus desegregation case, and so that's kind of how they got their name to fame, because they did that case, and because of that case and what it meant for that particular community, they made a pledge to make sure their firm was racially diverse. And so I was just mesmerized, thought I was very fortunate to get that job, and I was. I worked there for 3 years, but I left after 3 years because, as I told you, I was very idealistic, and I became disillusioned because while they let me represent the people who couldn't afford attorneys many times, and I was able to do what I wanted to do, at the end of the day it was about the money. And so they had a novel concept, associates set in with partners. And I'm telling you all this to say to you, find what fits you. And this fit me. And so they were so cool that associates would sit in with partners and actually had a vote on things we did with the money. I mean, it was just phenomenal. When they won big cases, we received a bonus, even if you didn't work on the case. Just totally different than anything I had ever seen. And so as we sat in a meeting one day, and it's funny that I will say this because many of them are now in political places, but I'm very candid, and that's who I was there. But as we sat there, we had won a big medical malpractice case, and so they were discussing what to do with the money. And since I was one of those people who wanted to represent those who didn't have money, I said, can we do this? Can we put 1% of all of the verdicts we get in a pool for money to fund this litigation that we think is important, but that clients don't have money and we can't just pull from our resources? And I just remember them looking at me as if I had said the most outlandish thing in the world, and my feelings got so hurt, tears just welled up in my eyes, but I couldn't let them see it. And that was just such a disillusionment to me, because I thought, I came here for all the principles you stand for, and we can't take 1% to put in the fund. And so at that point, that and some other things prompted me to think, okay, I need to do something different. So Ken Malden, who was the solicitor at the time in Athens, Clarke County, who is now the DA, had been asking me to work for him for many years, and he would call me in Charlotte, say, you ready to come home? So I called him and I said, okay, I think I'm ready. Well, I could never imagine myself being a prosecutor, because I was all about the underdog. And so I thought, but I can do the solicitor's office. That's just misdemeanors. Nobody can go to jail more than a year, 12 months, and a fine no more than $1,000. I can do this. So I went to Athens. I worked with him for 2 years. But then I got married and was pregnant, and I was driving back and forth from Decatur, Lithonia specifically, to Athens every day, and I knew that was too much, so I said, you know, Mr. Malden, thank you for the experience, but I think I need to leave. So I left, and I started working as assistant general counsel for Clark Atlanta University, which was very different than anything I did. It was even a different kind of practice than, say, a firm practice, because basically I was looking at contracts with artists who would come on campus, all of the things that universities do. But after 9 months, I knew I needed to leave. I was philosophically at odds with things that I felt like I was being asked to do. So I left that and went to work for Bob Keller at the Clayton County DA's office. Best gig I ever had in my whole life. He was the greatest boss ever. He just retired recently from working for the governor. He was head of the Board of Pardon and Paroles. And so I worked with him for 3 years, really cool place. Tried cases, every kind of case you can think of that's a felony, I tried. Very rewarding experience, but after 3 years there, I knew it was time for me to grow. I had kind of done everything we could do. I was one of the top prosecutors, and so I interviewed for the U.S. Attorney's Office. Interviewed in Atlanta, and they were going to hire me for their next slot, but I would have to wait. And the U.S. Attorney at the time here in Macon called Atlanta to say, if you were hiring, who would you hire next? And they gave her my name, and that's how I came to be in Macon. Because I figured I'll just go ahead and take an assistant U.S. attorney's spot. I don't want to give one up waiting for another one. And I had one in Alabama that was waiting, but I decided I'd stay in Georgia. And so I came here and I worked in that office for 15 years, did everything. I've done some litigation there that we've never done. You all, I don't know how many of you all are from Macon, but I was a part of a prosecution that shut down Sedona Tanning Spa Salon, which was basically a sex shop. And so I headed that prosecution. That was something our office had never done. I did some housing cases that our office had never done. Did big drug conspiracy cases. And I did asset forfeiture, kind of everything our office could do. And so after working there for 15 years, and I know this is a question you might ask me, people came to me when Judge Brown was considering retiring. And the first person came to me and said, I think he's going to retire. This is before it became public. I think you need to put your name in the hat. And, I thought, they're just being nice. I've worked really hard. That's a atta-girl for being a good, hard worker. And I just chopped it up as that. Then the second person came to me, related to the first person, without any knowledge that the first person had already kind of told me that this was going to come up, because nobody knew he was going to retire. And I thought, why did they come to me? So when the third person came to me, I thought, it was my boss, Michael Moore, who's the U.S. Attorney now. And I thought, well, maybe I need to think about this. The ironic thing, 2 or 3 years prior to my putting my name in the hat, I had been thinking, I need to do more. I'm very active in the community. Any case that came in our office that nobody wanted to touch, I'd do it. I spent many nights up at the office at 2 o'clock in the morning getting ready for trial, because I don't like help. So I do all my cases myself, even multi-defendant cases. And I thought, I've been saying I want to do more. Maybe this is it. Well, I will tell you, the scary part about signing on is that it's not a permanent gig like being an AUSA. Being an AUSA, I had job security. I knew I was going to be there. The only thing I had to worry about was hitting the top of the pay scale and not getting any more raises. But I had security. And so with this gig, you have to run for office every 4 years. Well, I tend to be very spiritual in nature, and I thought, you can't say you want to do more, you want to serve more, and not be willing to put yourself out there. And so I'm a huge proponent in, if you say something, then mean it. and be willing to do what it takes to make it happen. And so it was kind of like a dare to myself. If you say you want to serve, then show me you want to serve. And so I thought, I'm doing this. And I've got 2 kids. I'm a divorced mom raising my 2 kids. My son is in college, and my daughter goes to private school. And I thought, wow, this is an act of faith. But I tell my kids all the time, if you believe in something, live up to it. And so you can't preach what you don't practice. And so I put my name in the hat and went through the process. And the governor called me one Friday afternoon, and I just answered the phone, Verda Colvin, U.S. Attorney's Office, and he's like, this is Governor Nathan Deal. And so it was because he called my cell and I didn't answer, and then then he called back on the main line, and so then I was appointed on April 16th of 2014, and I started the next day on April 17th.
Wow. I want to ask you if there's anything you haven't done.
I know.
What a range.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I thought the other day, I'm the only prosecutor I know who's done everything from, misdemeanors all the way up to federal offenses, and this has kind of been a nice progression.
Before we turn to your experience as a judge, I want to ask you just a couple of things about your life as a lawyer. And one of them is whether at any point you felt like you were treated differently because you were a woman or because you're African American.
Good question. And I've thought about this often. Now, I will tell you all, from what I've told you, you can probably imagine I'm very idealistic. So I don't, and I hope for any African American students you don't think this is Pollyanna, but I don't walk around thinking every day that I'm black and I'm an African American female. I mean, I know that. I mean, that is intrinsically who I am. And so I don't think about that. There are times when things will happen that I am keenly made aware of it or reminded of it. But for me, having the strength of always being excellent has transcended all of that, I think. And I will tell you how. When I first started practicing at the firm I told you I worked at, we had a female attorney who was pregnant at the time. She was a partner. And she was supposed to go in and represent the stockbroker with the stockbroker agency. I'll just be candid, he had stole a lot of money from a very rich couple. Middle-aged white guy, had all the signs of all the success of a stockbroker, the stomach, the $500, $1,000, $1,500 suit. He was just so put together. And so she was going out, she had some problems with her pregnancy, and so they were like, Verda, we need you to handle this. Well, I didn't know anything about stockbrokers or the law, but I studied up. So when they brought him to meet me, and Miss Ellington, she brought him to meet me, and he looked at me like, what now? I'm just out of law school. So I'm almost 50 now. People tell me I look young. So you can imagine how young I looked at 25. I wore my hair back to make me look a little bit more classy and older, but it didn't work a lot. He looked, he said, wait a minute, I'm paying good money, and this is who you all will give me to represent me. So I was like, what? So at that point I knew it was because, it was a little, I didn't look like him, I wasn't him, and I wasn't in the age bracket that he thought I would be experienced. So at that point, that was a challenge. So I did all the research I needed to do. We went to the, he was in front of the board of stockbrokers in North Carolina to see if they would let him keep his license. The older couple was there who were very, very rich. And so I'm going in thinking, oh, this is a lot, his license is on the line. So I go in and I, do my thing and I represent him. And so this beautiful gentleman, white gentleman, about 60 years of age, very tall, slender, complete white hair, just looked like he walked out of Business Weekly or something. It's just beautiful. He comes out and he has one hand in the pocket, he extended it and he said, Miss Andrews, that's my maiden name, Miss Andrews, I want to tell you, you are a credit to your gender and your race. Because before you walked in that room, this man, because he wasn't young, this man was going to have all his credentials stripped. As a result of you walking in that room and representing him, he will be able to keep his stockbroker license, but he will have to pay back all of this money, regardless of how it got him. He said, but you are a credit to your race and your gender. And I was like, I can't believe he said that. And I went back to the firm and I told him, the partners got in the room, black, white, Jewish. I said, can you all believe that? That's racist. I can't believe. And they laughed and they said, Verda, you don't realize that's huge. You showed him something he had never seen before. And you have made a mark for our firm about what we're about and the excellence in which we strive. And so from that day forward, I never allowed my race or my gender to have any effect on who I was as an attorney. What I learned is having a standard of excellence that transcends all of that. Because once he saw that, imagine how that changed his view and all the other people on that board's view about thinking differently just because I don't come in looking like what they think I should look like. And so my thought is, when I explain my Pollyanna view, is that I don't think about race or my sex, because I think if I'm excellent, then when I walk in and present who I am, that just catapults me above the best white guy in the room, because they don't expect that. And so I really haven't had that as an issue much. In court sometimes people walk in, they're like, what? Because I'm an anomaly in Macon being the first African-American female to be on the Superior Court bench. And many times they'll say, yes, sir, and oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, that's okay, that's what you primarily see, so that's fine. And so I don't wear a chip on my shoulder, and I think that helps everybody. So that's my stance on, being who I am.
Well, you said you got the call from the governor, and then the next day you started.
Yeah.
What surprised you the most when you became a judge?
I think I thought, because I worked so hard at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I thought, man, when I become a judge, once I start this, I'll be able to chill a little. I won't have to, work so hard. I won't have to, I can just I kind of made it. And because of my work ethic, probably, because people tell me, you're not doing it right, I work hard. Every night I take work home. Every day I'm always working. I schedule, my day is scheduled, boom, boom, boom. But that's a part of who I am, and I now recognize it doesn't have to be that way, but that's my work ethic, and that's what I expect of others. And that's the part that's surprising to me as I become a judge, because I recognize everybody doesn't have my work ethic.
Okay. Well, you say you structure your day, boom, boom, boom. Is there a typical day for you?
Not really. Let me tell you what I do. I cover a lot of arenas. I do all the narcotics cases. I do the family violence court, which is a diversion court, more or less, of people who've been charged with committing some domestic crime with their partner or whoever they lived with in their household, and it's a way to give them an alternative versus straight prosecution. So I do that court, which is bi-weekly. I handle the mental health court, which I have a passion for, and those are people who have usually a dual diagnosis, mental health problems coupled with substance abuse issues. And we become like a family, because every 2 weeks I'm seeing them for a total of 24 months until they can graduate from the program. In addition to that, I do any domestic cases, which are divorce cases that Judge Raymond is conflicted out of, because he practiced in that area for 26 years. In addition to that, there's one other thing, and I always forget. It's 5 different things I do, but I do all of those, and every 5 weeks I preside. So presiding means you do adoptions, child support calendar, bond hearings, TPOs, temporary restraining orders. So I do a hodgepodge of things. So I don't really have a typical day.
Well, that makes it fun.
Yeah, it does, and I like that. Even in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I didn't like being pigeonholed in the area, so I did cases all over the gamut at the same time, because to me that keeps it interesting.
Would you mind talking just a little bit more about the mental health court? And the reason I want you to do that, of course, obviously you have a passion for it, but I'm not sure the students would be aware that these kinds of programs are out there. Most of them judicially created.
Exactly.
To try to get to the root of what's causing these people to be in the system, instead of just processing them, trying to get to the root and maybe help them.
Yes.
Right.
Our governor, Nathan Deal, he came up with the Criminal Reform Act, and basically he changed some things. It's an effort to not continue to house people when you can do something other than that. So I applaud him in that effort, and that's something that was exciting about having my interview with him, to let him know that I think those reforms make a difference. But the accountability courts, mental health is one of those courts, and these are people who've committed crimes, but they have a mental health issue that's been documented, and typically that mental health issue, coupled with usually a substance abuse issue, caused them to kind of commit the crime. So you've got somebody who's bipolar, they're not taking their meds, they use drugs to kind of regulate their mental stability, and then they go rob a house because they need the money to get the drugs. because typically they're not working a job, so they don't have the money to support their habits. And so rather than possibly put them in jail, they can agree, because they have to agree to come to my mental health court program, because this is tough. We have 5 phases through the program, and they have to work each phase. If you mess up, you get sanctions, and some of those sanctions include community service, writing essays, and jail time. They can get up to 72 hours in jail when they commit so many infractions. And basically, it's an effort on my part and any judge who does the accountability court to help teach them the need and the actual positive effects of staying on their meds and not being on drugs. And so I run my court kind of different than any other judge I've seen. I become personally invested in these people. So for instance, and this is true even in my other duties, child support, narcotics cases, I write people. Because what I see and what I do is people lack inspiration. Just in general, they have lost hope. They seem to settle for mediocrity. And I just believe everybody is meant for greatness. Greatness for each person is defined differently, but each person was created for a specific purpose. So my lot in life, as I sit on this bench, is to try to show people that you're special. And regardless of what you've done previously, you can decide to live a different life. And so in doing so with people in mental health, I try to inspire them to do something other than what they've done. Like one of my participants, I'm trying to help him start back in college. Some of them I write every week just to inspire them. You can do this. You can do this, and you have come to my court for a specific reason because you're able to do this. And so it's a novel way of handling people who would have normally been in jail. And so we have a 3.5-page waiting list since I've become the judge of mental health court. People hear about our program and they want to be in it. And I think a lot of that is because they've never heard anybody say, you can do this. This does not have to be your life. And I try to tell every defendant that comes before me, why do you want to be in an orange jumpsuit with people telling you when to get up, when to go to sleep, what to do? You were meant to be more than that. Don't allow this to be your destiny. And so I'm novel in that approach. I have people come sit in my court just to see me. I just believe that is the service that I was put here to give. And so as long as I'm sitting on the bench, that's what I will do. And I'm trying to get us out of this mediocrity life, and that's what so many people who come before me have. So the mental health court, veterans court, which Judge Self does, problem-solving court, which helps our guys who haven't paid child support owe $20-something thousand. It helps them get jobs, get education so that they can begin taking care of their children. So we have veterans court, problem-solving court, mental health court, and family violence. And I'm the only person I know in Georgia that has a family violence court. We're still trying to make that what we think it should be, but it's not one that's legislated. So it's something we're just doing on our own.
You became a missionary after all.
I did, didn't I? I told one of the prosecutors, because my mental health court typically takes me 2 hours, because I believe each person needs face time, and the proven results have shown that if a judge spends at least 3 minutes with each participant, they will do better, and they will fare better when they leave. And so I didn't know that statistic, but that's what I do, because I'm going to talk to each person that comes before me. So my prosecutor, he pulls up a chair to sit down because, he knows I'm going to go through my little spiel, and I'm real big with quotes. And so I said to him one day, I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Adams, I know sometimes you probably get tired of me going through this. I said, I think I was really meant to be a social worker. He said, no, you weren't. You were meant to do this because you're much more effective in this role, saying what you say that you could ever be as a social worker. And so I told him, thank you for that, because I think he's right in some ways, because I have that heart, but I'm also tough. And so, you don't get away with it. I don't put people in jail. I just give them what they want. So if you don't conform, you want to go. You just don't realize you want to go. So I'm going to show you that's what you want. And so maybe you won't want that in the future. So that's what I tell people when I was a prosecutor. They say, how could you do that, put people in jail? I said, I don't put anybody in jail. I facilitate their desires. And when you're in jail, that's what you're not supposed to do. I'm just facilitating your desire. You didn't know that was your desire, but that's what you desired.
You've been at this almost a year. This is a different approach than a traditional approach for a Superior Court judge. With almost a year of experience, How do you think your approach is working?
You know, and it's funny that's a good question you asked me, because there were some times that I wondered, well, you know, I have Judge Raymond, Judge Self, Judge Ennis, Judge Sims, thank you, and myself. And I thought, okay, number one, I'm different from them in so many ways. I'm a female, my perspective, I'm African American, my background is different, you know, my experiences. And as I went through this process, this whole year that I've almost been on the bench, many times I have thought, and I'm asked to speak in a lot of places. In one place I did a presentation on what I'm about to say to you all. And I wondered many days, I would think, well, maybe I should change my voice. My voice isn't like the other voices that they're hearing in other courtrooms. And, you know, I struggled with that, and then I thought, I can't change my voice. Because the very reason why I put my neck on the line to say I will do this, despite not having a guaranteed employment, is to have that voice. Is to reach in a way that other people may not be reaching. And so if I let go of that voice, what was the purpose of me being put on the bench versus anybody else? So if I lose my voice, then I devoid the bench of having the diversity it needs. And so over the course of the year, I've kind of solidified the fact that I like having the voice that's different. I like being different. When people come in my courtroom, they know it's a whole different ballgame. Even the prosecutors know that. And I don't have a lot of patience for a lack of excellence, and I don't have a lot of patience for not doing what I feel like we should do. And so that may be a little bit different because I'm a little bit more stern, I think, in some ways. But I do have a voice of compassion, but I will also incarcerate people when I feel like that's the option. And so I think my voice is needed, and I will maintain my voice because I think it helps make us a more real court. And when somebody stops you, that when they're about to go to jail because you denied their bond, and they said, I need to go back and say something to her, and they come back and say to me, thank you for talking to me and addressing me. You're the first judge I've ever appeared in front of who said my name, who took the time to talk with me. That meant more to me than anything. And this guy was going off to jail, but that meant something to him. And so as long as I'm on the bench, I will give people the respect I think they deserve. And you know, I require that they look at me. When I'm talking, I said, look at me in my eyes. I want you to understand what I'm saying. And, you know, I write them, they write me back, because people are eternally dying. And we see it in our society every day. Look at what's going on in our world. People, and I say this sometimes on the bench, we have lost our moral compass as a people, as a nation, in many ways. And so, to the extent I can, I try to bring that back, even in child support court. I tell them, sir, you got 6 kids, and you don't have a job. What are you thinking? You know, that's asinine. You know, and I just, you know, I just try to, because sometimes they hadn't even heard, you're right. So do what you have to do to stop having these children and take care of what you have. I can't take care of 6 children. How can you? You know, you've got to get a GED. And so that's a mantra of mine. You won't go to jail for not paying a fine if you try, but you will go to jail if you don't get the GED. I'm going to assure you have the basics of what you need to get a job. And on some things, I'm just no nonsense. I said, you know, you're 22 years old and you stop school in 8th grade. What is that? And I'm the mother you never had. That's what I tell you. You're going to stay with me. You're going to stay with me throughout this period of probation. So guess what? You're going to jail if we don't get this GED. Because I care about you. And they know it. One of the probation officers tell me, what did she say? It's some saying now they have. Something about a railroad. You're off the tracks, Judge. Everybody in jail is talking about you because, you know, you're no nonsense. And I'm like, you know, it's just, I'm not going to let you accept mediocrity. You may end up choosing that, but you're going to choose it while you sit in the LEC or in prison, because you're not going to choose it and be just out willy-nilly on the street. No, we're gonna do something different.
Well, in just under a year, I couldn't begin, I doubt you could begin to count the number of people you have encountered.
Yeah.
And you will encounter that many more next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and so on. How are you going to keep it fresh?
I know, and that's why, you know, people tell me in the house, they say, Judge, we worry about you because you do so much and you pour so much into it. And, you know, I don't have a lot of resources for my mental health course. So when my guys come in and they have their CHIP, 6-month sobriety, 30-day sobriety or whatever, I buy incentives. I buy them treats, I buy things. My family violence court, one guy just graduated, I said, what kind of cake you want? He said, a red velvet. I said, man, you would pick something I just can't go in the store and buy. Because, you know, the store-bought red velvet cakes are never good. So I paid somebody to make a cake. For me, this is a ministry, I will say that. And not like I'm trying to put a religious aspect, because it's separate church and state, but for me, and I guess it gets back to what I want to do at first, a missionary. So for me, it's a ministry. And so I use my spiritual strength to pour back into myself. Because every time I do a speaking engagement, you're right, it pulls, because I'm so invested emotionally, it pulls something from me. But I feel like this is what I was meant to be. I tell people all the time, and I will tell you all as law students, have a purpose, make sure your purpose is your passion, and then have a plan for achieving that passionate purpose. Because if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're wasting your time and your money. I will say that again. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're wasting your time and your money. And if you get through this process and you figure, I don't know if I want to do this, you can use your law degree in a lot of different ways, but whatever you do, be passionate about it, because you're wasting your time if you're not. And you're not giving your true gift. This is my passion, and I think it's what my calling is. And so when you do that, it's never work. Like, how do I do it? It's not work for me. It's what I feel like I'm supposed to do. So I wake up every day and just do what feels right. And if you do that, it will never be work. It'll just be going to do what you like to do. Now, I don't like having to be there at a certain time, you know, because I'm not a morning person, but because I'm a stickler for time, I'm there on time every day, and I start court. I can't stand to be late. Oh, that's my pet peeve, and everybody who practices in front of me know that. But, you know, be passionate about it, or else don't do it.
Is there anything that you don't like about being a judge? Anything you find to be particularly frustrating?
It's frustrating to be restricted in what I can say. Because sometimes I think certain people need to hear the off comment I want to make, but I can't make it because of my restrictions. So and sometimes I'll say, you know, you really, and I'll just.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but that's too tempting. You're not on the bench at the moment, although you are on YouTube.
Well,
Give us an example.
Sometimes I want to do things like, you know, what I say to people, you know, just in life, because I do a lot of things in the community with the young people, and because I'm so real, like I don't try to hide behind titles. To me, I'm called a judge, but for me it's helping folks, so I don't get caught up in that. But like I tell young men, I can see them in the store, man, pull up your pants. You wonder why they keep stopping you? It's because you got your pants down, you got this crazy hairdo, and don't do that. But it's nothing different than what I tell my son. Like, he's got this new hairdo that African American guys wear, where it's not the twist, but they kind of let it be a little kinky, you know, it's getting back to our roots or something. I don't like it. But anyway, I just tell him, I said, son, you know, if you're going to do that, keep it. You know, he goes to school in New York, so he's like, Mom, it's not like the South. I'm like, I don't care. I said, keep it neat and, you know, be respectful. Now, he never said, because you know, we can't do that. But, you know, I'm like, pull up your pants. Look like you care about who you are and what you represent. You know, and don't take your hat off when you enter a building. You know, I want to tell them certain things like that, but certain things I can't say. But my participants in my court, off the cuff, they'll write me, and I say, you know, get that thing out of your hair, let your hair grow back and just get it cut. Don't put a star in your head. You know, just, and sometimes I think it's because they've never had anybody to tell it. And you know, they will laugh like you're laughing, but they're like, you're right, Judge Colvin, you're right. And I'm like, where is your belt? I don't have a belt. How do you not have a belt? You cannot be a man who's responsible in life and not have a belt. What's your waist size? I'm buying you a belt. So I bought so many belts, so now people say, Judge, I got a belt out. I'm like, okay. And you know, people laugh. You know, I believe in the gift of laughter. Sometimes things we laugh about help us remember them all the more. Any guys in here who don't wear belts, they're probably going to think about that next time they put on their pants and they're kind of, you see their underwear, let me put on a belt. I remember that judge said something crazy. But, you know, I tell them, I don't look like you care. Just have half of the battle is just caring. Now, do you look down? I just look down. Do you look like you care? Just care. When you come in this court, care. And so, you know, in my courtroom with my participants, they know they've got to wear slacks if they can. If you have them, don't wear jeans. You know, look like we've got to look like we have a purpose and a plan. And I try to tell them that because sometimes nobody ever told them to have a purpose and a plan. You know, believe it or not, guys, it's a lot of people who've never experienced the support that you all have experienced. They have never had, somebody told me once, nobody ever told me that I can do what I want to do. And you know, that hit me. I didn't make that face, but I thought, it just hurt my heart because I'm like, you can. And we're going to fight each other. And one guy wrote me a card, and he looks like many of you. A white, young male, very attractive guy, but he's going through some issues. And he wrote me a card. He said, I have never had any person, any judge to inspire me. Thank you for doing that. And I told him, I said, we are pen pals for life. You write me, I write you back. And so as soon as I got his card, I wrote him back. You know, and it matters not to me who the person is who comes before me. Everybody needs some inspiration. And even you all need some inspiration sometimes. So inspire each other. Because what is really what you give, not what you get. That's the greatest lesson, and that's the key that most people don't know. Success is not about all the trinkets that come with maybe making good money, because that will never ultimately, at the end of the day, make you happy. It's about what you give of yourself to make the world and other people better. And so when I leave home every day, I feel good when I come back, because I've given a little bit of myself away. And that's really, to me, what it's all about. When you don't do that, you really deplete your own resources.
We've been talking about your expectations of the parties, the defendants, and so on. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your expectations of the lawyers.
Thank you.
And maybe part of that, maybe you have a pet peeve or two.
Yeah.
But talk about expectations for the lawyers who appear before you.
Be on time. You should be in the courtroom before the judge gets there. Be in court at least 15 minutes before it starts so you can gather your things and gather your thoughts. I cannot stand it when people are late. I mean, that's unacceptable. I mean, time is valuable. We have limited time in the world, so come to court on time, number one. Number two, always come prepared. Know your case better than anybody. I shouldn't be able to tell you more about your case than you know. When people walk in my courtroom, and the reason why I work harder now, I have read every single piece of paper in the file. Every single piece of paper, I have read that, because I owe you that, because you've brought this lawsuit, or you're representing this client. So if I give you that much respect, I expect you to respect me enough to come in court prepared, ready to go. It is no greater pleasure I have than presiding over a case where both sides are equally prepared, and I walk out of that courtroom being directed as to where I need to go with the law and what I need to decide, and I don't have to figure it out from point A to Z because I didn't get any guidance. Just have a standard of excellence for yourself. If you do, you will never be without a gig. If you do, you will always be successful. But if your standard is just get by, that's what kind of lawyer you're going to be, a get-by lawyer. And you will never have the respect of the judges who you appear before. You want to do that. So you might not be the smartest person, but you don't have to be. I think in the end, the person who does the best in life is the person who works the hardest. I really do.
Judge, I want to make sure the students have time to ask you whatever they want to ask you. But everybody who does us the honor of coming and being with us, I give them an opportunity before the students ask questions to say anything you want to say, anything that you think these students need to hear, maybe something you wish you had heard when you were a first-year law student.
Mercer seems to, I graduated from UGA, and UGA probably does the same job now, but I graduated in 1990, so that's like another lifetime. But and so I don't know how law schools do it generally, but I will say this to you. Don't allow yourself to become discouraged by rank. Don't allow yourself to become discouraged by other people having inroads to the profession that you don't have because maybe their father has a firm or something like that. Know your strength. Believe in your strength. and know that you have something to offer. And no matter what or who you interview with, no matter who gives you the opportunity for an interview or who doesn't, because they have all these rankings they do, that doesn't define who you are. I'll give you a story. When I was in law school, I wasn't law review, but I was huge in mock trial and moot court. I was on the star teams. In fact, when I was doing moot court, they came to me, the person who was handling my team, which was the Frederick Douglass team, and they said, Verda, you scored high enough where you can be on any team you want to be on. You can be on the top premier team, which we haven't had African Americans on before. But I will tell you, if you're not on the Frederick Douglass team, we will have no Frederick Douglass team because you're the top candidate who happen to be a minority. So you can choose. Don't feel obligated to choose a team just because. Choose the team you want to. But you know, that's huge to hear that if you don't do the Frederick Douglass team, you won't have a team. And so I had to think about all of that, and I think, what is that top team that everybody wants to be on, the All-State, or what is it called, the one that goes to all the places? Come on, guys, help me. Oh, well, you all are first year, so you may not know. What is it called? It's whatever that top team that everybody wants to get on for moot court or mock trial, that's the one they said that I could be on because of my scores. And I thought about it. So I got on the team that was the lowly team that, you know, nobody really, you know, it wasn't one of the top teams. I did the Frederick Douglass because I thought it was important to keep that team going. And my thought is, if I've got a skill, that skill is going to be there regardless. And so ultimately, after doing moot court, then I was asked to do mock trial, but I wasn't law review. And so, you know, mock trial, moot court got me a lot of things that a lot of things wouldn't have gotten me. But the big firms in Atlanta, they still wanted the law review. I went to interview for Swift, Curry, McGee, and Hires, which is still around now. That's a big firm that you all will hear about. And there was a female partner in that firm, and for some reason, she just gravitated toward me. They didn't have many African-American associates there, and I guess I experienced more of the African-American thing going through the interview process after finishing law school. But they didn't have many, and she went to the partner, she went to the board, she pushed for me to be there. She was like, she needs to be there. I give up some of my interest in the firm because I really want her here. And so ultimately it was not to be. And so, but I went on with my career. Well, I was appointed to the bench, and then shortly thereafter, well, this past year, so almost a year thereafter, she was appointed to the Superior Court bench in Fulton County. And I reached out to her and I wrote her an email, and I said to her, in effect, Jane, I want to tell you that you might not remember me, and I described who I was without saying my name. I said, but you know, you met this young African-American female attorney who didn't have, I had some confidence because I was, you know, known at the law school because of all of the things I had done with moot court and mock trial, but, you know, I wasn't law review. And so I said, you might not remember me. I described who I was. I said, but you gave me the confidence to know that I could do anything, and the belief in myself that I didn't have totally. And she said, oh my God, I so remember you. And she said, I feel honored that you're on the Superior Court bench before I am. And she said, I can't wait to go back to the partners at the firm and say, I told you so. And so, and she said that, and she actually said she went and told them that. But, you know, I say that to say to you all, don't allow anything about the experience in law school to define who and what you'll be. Because you're bigger than that, you're greater than that. And just have that confidence as you move through. Because after first year, sometimes it will knock you on your fanny and you think, oh my God, I was like, you know, top of my class in college, and here I am just trying to hold on. That's okay. At the end of the day, nobody counts that. You're a lawyer. So just get through. Do the work and get through. And don't allow people to define who you are or how good you are. Look at me. So just remember that.
All right. Thank you, Judge. What questions do we have for Judge Colvin?
You've spoken a lot today about people needing to derive inspiration, and I'm curious, where do you derive inspiration?
And I hate to have to say this because it puts me in the pot. I will tell you I guess my spiritual part of my life. That gives me my inspiration. And the longer I live, the more I am acutely aware that really we're all here to serve each other. That's really what life is about. And I just don't see any way around it. Even if you go, and I don't, and please understand me, I don't think you have to do it the way I do service. I think even if I work for some huge Hollywood star and just did their contracts, I could still serve people in ways. I can be kind. When I see somebody who needs something outside of the service that I render, give them a word. Because I don't care what economic stance you might be in, we all meet people who sometimes are lacking something, right? Sometimes we're lacking things. And so you just meet people where they are. But that's what really keeps me going. That's my inspiration. And I truly have a love for mankind. I really do. I haven't met a person who I don't find something good in. And when I say that, I haven't met a person who I don't find something good in. So you know how in law school, it's a lot of gunners. I don't know if you all still call them that, but you know, the ones who just suck up to the professors and, you know, you're like, oh, if they talk one more time. You know, I just never had anybody who I didn't connect with. And so because of that, I just have a love for people. And so when you really love humankind, you can't not give back. And so, you know, and people never cease to amaze me. So, and I'll say that in court too sometimes. You can't make this stuff up, you know. It's just too real to be true. So that's kind of what guides me.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you ever find during law school that you talked a lot about your faith, that it was sort of not valued or appreciated within school? And how did you deal with that and maintain it? And then as your career progressed, do you feel that you've been able to maybe not intermix the two, but value the two simultaneously?
I have found that. And you know, when you're young, it's easier to keep it under wraps. So, you know, that's something I always knew. Like, I don't know about y'all, but before I did anything, I'm like, okay, God, you really got to help me on this test. 'Cause I get the concepts, but apparently I'm not putting it down on paper just like, because I can't get beyond this B. I can't get an A. And so, you know, I kept it in my heart, but I didn't wear it on my sleeve because you know, you're just trying to get to class on time. I look like a crazy woman. I'm like, ah! You know, my friends are like, slow down! Stop tripping out! You know, I was one of those crazy law students. But I wasn't a gunner, but I was just sitting in the back like, oh my God, what am I doing? Oh my God, property, oh, hated it. But, you know, my Professor Smith, he was very nice. But, yeah, sometimes I thought, wow, what am I doing here? But, yeah, it is hard, but I kept it to myself, and I think when you're younger, for me, it was harder to just kind of let it out, you know. But my friends who I was close to, like one of my best friends, she was law review, and so she would get upset because she'd be like, Verda, this is not fair. You know, I come to you and you explain the concepts, and I make the A, and you struggle to make the B. And I was like, don't worry about it. And she couldn't get over the fact that despite the fact that she would make the A, I still have study sessions with her. She's like, why do you help me? I said, because when I help you, I help me, and it's okay, Debbie. You know, it's all right. She didn't, you know, she was white, I'm black, because it was very few African American students, so, you know, the bulk of my friends didn't look like me. But I was like, that's cool. And it's funny because when we try to interview, I have to help her with interviewing skills because she was so smart, but she, you know, I'm very personable, and she struggled with that. And so, you know, she couldn't tell me how to write it because, you know, you don't know what the question's going to be. You just have to write. And she was atheist. But she asked me, how do you stay upbeat? And I just tried to share, you know, when she asked, I would try to share that with her, but I kept it kind of to myself. As I've gotten older, I can't help it. It's just such a part of me that even when, I hope you saw when I was here, I tried to not mention it, but I couldn't help it because it's a part, when you ask who I am, that's a part of who I am. But I don't put it off on other people. I respect other people's views. It's just my driving force that gets me going. And you will get there with your own way of handling it. But be true to who you are and don't allow that to leave you. Because if I had, I don't think I could have made it through. Because there were many days where I thought, what am I doing? I want to save the world, but I don't know if I'm going to save it like this, you know. So, you know, but you know, keep it in your heart. And you don't have to share it with everybody. Like I tell young people, some dreams you don't share because some people won't support your dreams, so you keep it right here. And you figure out as you move along who to share it with, but some things you just have to hold to the vest and you just live it out because everybody won't buy into your dream. And that's okay, but you don't need anybody to destroy whatever that dream is. And so that's why you hold it to your vest. And I think that's true even for guys, because you know how other guys are. You know, sometimes people will want to see you do bad. And I just tell my son that you can't tell everybody everything. You know?
Good advice.
You talked a lot about, I know you've worked in so many different
Mhm.
arenas and fields and everything like that. Is there something, maybe like on your professional bucket list, you know, if you had an opportunity to do or to go into some different arena now that you've done so many things, what might it be?
What I'd like to do. You know, I don't have anything else on my bucket list as far as law is concerned. You know what I would like to do? I'd like to win enough money where I could have these. This is something I've always dreamed of, so I'm going to share this dream with you all that most people do. And I don't share this with everybody, but I'm just going to put it out there because, you know, why not? Maybe somebody in here will become wealthier than what I can imagine and need to get rid of some money. And they'll come find me and we can work this thing together.
Remember, Your Honor, you're on YouTube.
That's right. Oh, that's right. So maybe somebody out there already. But you know what? If they steal it, you'll all know they stole it, right? I would love to do this. I would love to open up, like get these historic homes that, you know, have like 20 rooms in them. I would like to buy one of those and have in different cities, particularly cities like Macon that struggle economically for all people to be kind of at least making it because we have such a high poverty rate, to have this unit where I would allow families who are struggling but they want to stay an intact family to live there, to kind of get it together. They would have to pay a certain amount of money to the house to keep it sustained. And they would stay there. You'd have a limit, like a year or two that you could stay there to get on your feet. We would help you then get into housing that would help you and your family stabilize themselves, and you have to continue to pay back for a certain amount of time to keep that housing going for other families to come in. And they do have things kind of like that, but it's very hard to find situations where the whole family, a holistic approach. You know, usually it's a single mom with kids. I think America's got to get back to recognize the value of keeping that family intact. And I think the beauty of that attracts the most conservative political person because they agree in family values. It attracts the most liberal person because they want to give money for social programs. And if I could do that, if I could have somebody who would help me set that up, the money to start, I would love to do that. And I would go to various cities that struggle in that area to do that. I think it would help draw employment because they know you've got a base from which to build from. So if you all ever get some money and you want to, you know, because some people might want to practice law in setting up situations like that. You know, maybe we put you on the payroll, have somebody else divest, put some money, invest in that. I would love to do something like that. I think that could really change the dynamics of cities. So that would be on my bucket list. I didn't think this would happen, so maybe if I put that out there, it can come into fruition.
You have had such a varied career, so many different experiences. Is there anything you would have done differently?
You know what? I would have believed in myself more. I didn't have a lot of confidence when I first started on this journey. And the funny thing about it, I exude confidence all the time. Like when I went to court, nobody knew I was scared. I was scared to death. But I would have believed in myself more. So for instance, and I wouldn't change anything, but I wonder if, like, and, you know, you may have these experiences now, but like when I was in high school applying to college, Yale and Harvard wrote me personally and said, please apply, we want to consider you for admission. Well, neither of my parents had gone to college. So what did I do? I kept it for a while and just looked at it and thought, that is so nice. Wow, I got a letter from Harvard and Yale. And I never applied. And so that's why I say to you all, don't underestimate yourself. Go for it. Whatever that go for it is, go for it. We only come through this place one time as we know it. So why have regrets? And you know, I'm glad I went to Sweetbriar. I mean, I think it helped me develop confidence, all of those things that maybe I wouldn't have gotten in another school. But, you know, I didn't go for it. I let it go. And I had other experiences like that. And don't do that to yourself. Go for it. No matter what it is, just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. But if you don't go for it, you never know. So, and maybe I would have gotten here sooner had I done it.
Whatever. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask you, as far as, your mental health court goes, one thing I was kind of curious about is, how do you, sometimes when you see that somebody has like a mental health issue, and maybe you think to yourself that they could potentially work through it, how do you face it when you see their support group around them? Like, you might see them in the courtroom, and you just think to yourself, well, it's really not necessarily them. They're basically set up for failure because of the support group around them. I mean, how do you approach that? How can you stay so enthusiastic with your moral compass, like coming back day after day, when you look at it, and I know that after a certain amount of time, you can almost tell that it's headed that path. How do you still give them the benefit of the doubt?
What we try to do, we try to get them out of that environment. I'm one of these people, I'm like can do. I just have such this positive energy. There's no such thing as can't. And I tell people in my office, we're not saying that word. We're not saying can't. So what I do with people like that, we try to get them housing so they can get out of that environment with that person and make a new framework for the people who they associate themselves with. And sometimes, particularly in the criminal context, I have to tell them, you can think beyond where you're sitting. You don't have to allow what you're in to be your end all. And they will tell me, Judge, that's so hard to do. And I said, you know what, I get it. So come to the courthouse every time you need. Come see me. Tell them that you're out there, I'll come see you. I can't take everybody out of their situation. But what I try to do is help them learn how to take themselves mentally out of the situation. Because, and I tell this to people who are incarcerated, you may be physically located someplace, but your mind doesn't have to be there. You don't have to have an incarcerated mind. Because if you change your mental outlook, you can change your physical situation. But until you change that, you can't change anything else. I can take you physically out of situation, but if mentally you're locked up, you're going to still be right there. And so I try to make them think that they can be beyond that by thinking mentally. And it's going to take some work on their part, because that's not an easy thing to do. Many people who are educated like us don't do that very well. But that's the only way you can move beyond a bad situation. You got to think it before you can be it. And so I just have to keep coming back. I can't give up on them, because if I give up on them, they'll give up. So I have to keep coming back, and I have to keep being positive. And I give them food. Like the other day I was in court, I went to Kinko's before court, I found this great quote that I told them all to put it on their mirror, and I laminated it for them. And that's out of my pocket, but people need to be inspired. And so I told them, put it on your mirror, and every day read it. Remind yourself of what you can be. And let me just be honest, we all need to do that, because sometimes we lose our way. And if you don't have something to remind you of what you can be, you may fall into what is easy to be, which is mediocrity. Don't ever settle for mediocrity.
Judge, this has been quite an hour. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining me.